On this week's show, we're discussing the official reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2, our full breakdown of the hardware and the games potentially to come with some teasers, and PlayStation cancels 2 games that have been deep in development, including a new God of War. All that and much, much more on this week's GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone, and welcome back to your weekly show, the GamerGuild Podcast, where we get together and round up all the video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Just search for the GamerGuild Podcast or GamerGuild TV, and you will find us there every Monday, 8 a.m. We go live, bringing you all the latest juicy news. Your podcast players for the week are myself, Chris, at Arcane Rock on socials, and my man of mini pixels, Mr. Richie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. We're recording on a Friday evening before a full day of drinking tomorrow. We've got bottomless brunch because we're fancy. And we're going to have a nice messy one to celebrate 3 of our friends' birthdays combined into one mega birthday celebration. Do you think if we get them to buy each other drinks for each other's birthday, they'll just kind of cancel each other out?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just get that to work in our favour. But yes, we do have a great show lined up for you all, folks, so thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here at GamerGuildTV. Like our weekly live streams, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is currently being played through. Like our podcasts, like our shows, and like all the other content we do here at GamerGuildTV. We do quite a lot, actually, Richie. We do. We really do. And there's plenty in the back catalogue to check out as well. For example, the Clickercast, we have remastered completely, and by that I mean I've tweaked the audio a little bit, and I've added our shiny new intro. So if you've not seen it yet, the Clickercast will be back for season 2 with a shiny new intro, courtesy of our usual artist. It's in the same theme of the rest of the channel, and we can't wait for you all to check it out later this year. April, we don't have a date yet. I'm going to guess mid-April. I think that's been bandied around. But of course,
it's only a few months ahead. It feels like she might as well just put an actual
give it a day, yeah. Unless they're waiting for maybe other shows or live content. I'm not sure either way. HBO, Americans, etc., etc. But yes, Richie, we do have a great show. Don't forget, everyone, follow us on social channels at GamerGuildTV. We do have a merch store to check out if you want some fancy swag to keep you warm this winter, because we still have a couple of months left. Richie's rocking some there. And we start every week's show, Richie, with talking about what we've been playing. So the last 7 days between work and play, what have you been up to?
A little bit of metaphor, but I haven't actually played much this week. It's been just a fairly busy week. Just started running again. So I just haven't really got around to playing anything. I'm currently watching Gotham, though.
Ah, yes.
It's a good show, about 4 seasons in out of 5. So we've been watching that. So I did actually watch the 1966 Batman movie the other night.
Wow, that's a throwback.
That is an amazing movie.
Is it amazing just because of the campiness now? Like more of a comedy?
It is more of a comedy, but there's some decisions in that movie, like with modern sensibilities and cinematography and stuff, that where scenes that were not meant to be comedic were absolutely hilarious. Just how bad they are. Yeah. There's like a scene where Batman hides from an exploding bomb, and Robin's running down this pier looking for him. He's like staring over the railings and stuff, like full on dramatic. And Batman just pops up from behind some pipes and goes, "Luckily, there's some pipes here." And it's like, that's fine. It's quite campy, but then you realise when Robin was running up the pier, there's no way he wouldn't have seen Batman awkwardly crouched behind the pipes, waiting for the right moment, just because where the camera was set from our perspective, but that's not Robin's perspective. Yeah. We would have seen him just crouched there.
Yeah, it's you sometimes forget how far things like Batman go back in time now. Like they must, I think it comes up on 100-year-old soon. I saw like a list of things that go into the public domain. I know Mickey Mouse, or the original version of Steamboat Willie, was last year. I think we talked about it because there was a game, like a horror game. I think we get Popeye maybe in the next year or two, and then Donald Duck, and then a lot of others follow. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Batman's like the 30s, so we're probably not far off getting Batman horror movie knockoffs and such things.
I've just realised this, actually. The 1966 Batman movie is literally almost 60 years old.
Ooh. The 66 Batman is older than... When it hits 60 years, that's...
it's
one of those dates which always shocks people. Like Oxford University being older than the Aztec Empire. Baffling, but true. Just like what is also true is we've got a great show lined up for everyone. I'm similar to you, actually. I'm still in that kind of lull of like I don't really know what to commit to playing. Finished another season on FC 24. Finished second in the Premier League. Didn't quite make it. But I got Champions League spot, and I've gone out this season. Thought this is probably the last season I'll play in this version of the game. So I've gone all out and spent like 150 million in the summer just to really bolster my squad with like subs level 80 and everything. So I've got quality and depth now, ready to tackle the next one. But I have started Sly Cooper 2 Band of Thieves. I've only played like 2 hours of it, but I think that's going to be my next like little just 3D platformer to just tie me over, get me close to Assassin's Creed while maybe I feel something out. But I've been really busy with work. I've been away, so not too much gaming on my part as well. I did, however, I've decided in my hunt for video games to every time I'm away with work and I'm in a different city, I'm going to pop to the local CX and start collecting things because we played.
So you can find like a gem,
just a little dig around. Yeah, so I got 2 games this week to add to my collection. Some of these I have owned before, and I just sold them as a daft idiot as a child. But I got some good copies. Max Payne 3 on the PlayStation 3.
Okay.
I have 1 and 2, so it was kind of like I might as well get the 3rd. And I realised when I was doing some research into these as well, there's a lot of the other Rockstar games that aren't Grand Theft Auto. You can almost see the learnings from each game that goes into making Grand Theft Auto. It's almost like they farm out new gameplay mechanics to other studios. So like, you test the gunplay, you test the car play. When you think back over time, Max Payne had gunplay, third person. Midnight Club had the racing, driving down. Bully had the what was the kind of hand-to-hand melee. Yeah. It's like when you look back through all of their games, they all basically funnel towards the success that is Grand Theft Auto. And Max Payne is kind of one of them where I think it's been left out a little bit, but apparently it is a really good game. So curious to check that one out. And it doesn't even look that old. Like by today's standards, it's the art style feels modern.
Nowadays, you forget that Rockstar do anything other things other than Grand Theft Auto and the occasional Red Dead game.
Mm-hmm.
By the occasional Red Dead game, I mean they've made 2.
Yeah,
they just feel like at the moment, it feels like they've almost just become the Grand Theft Auto studio.
Yeah, almost. But this one's kind of young enough to have. It's got like the Rockstar Social Club content and stuff. So it's like, again, I say modern, but like GTA is like over 10-year-old, so no surprise there. Do you want to hazard a guess of the price of this little beauty?
Ooh, £2.52.
Oh, not far off. £4 for this one.
Okay, that's not bad.
That's reasonable. And then I saw this little gem, which I had to pick up. I do have the successor to it, but Simpsons Road Rage.
Oh, nice.
Which, of course, was the kind of original, like, Crazy Taxi version, which then evolved into Simpsons Hit and Run, which is the more favourable one. But yeah, the quality of the box art and the casing is immaculate.
That looks really well. Yeah,
it was immaculate. I was like, I have to have this one. Like, inside, again, everything's crisp and pristine. Sorry, audio listeners, but you're just basically getting a glimpse.
Someone's bought that, probably not played it, and then eventually just sold it.
Yeah, it's just absolutely pristine. So do you want to hazard a guess to this one?
So Max Payne was about £4, so I think I'm going to stick with like £2.50.
Ooh, slightly different. This one's 10.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's because it's got that kind of
rarity
like,
and
the
probably
rarity.
Simpsons to it.
Yeah, and maybe the quality. I'm not sure how CX grade theirs, but I don't know if they have like I know they do with like the text. If you buy like a mobile phone, there's like grade A through D quality. So maybe it's up there. But yeah, I thought
it might also be you potentially get Max Payne on other modern platforms.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Remedy are remaking them, right?
Yeah.
Currently.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you could get that on Xbox right now. Mm-hmm. So that might be something that factor into the price, the costings.
Absolutely. So yeah, interesting one. But so I think that could be like almost like a mini segment on the show while I'm out and about. Finding some, I might pop into a few stores this week. We'll have to see. But of course, that's not what our audience is here for, mainly to listen to our boring, dull lives and what we get up to. They're here for all the gaming news, and what a gaming news week we had, Richie. Thankfully, we held off on our Nintendo episode because just the lay of the land, the way we were predicting things. We've done PlayStation's year ahead. We did Xbox's year ahead last year. And then conveniently, to our great surprise and thrill, we got some big Nintendo news this week. So this week's episode will be a little bit different because we're not just speculating and theorizing. We genuinely have arguably the biggest Nintendo news of the last 7-8 years dropped on our laps. But we can't get into all that until Richie butts down the cat and introduces us to the
graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, aka the news.
The news. And as always, the news is brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic members who support the channel that extra little bit further, just like you can from as little as 99p. You can support this small, independent, I was going to say business, but it's not really, small dicking around on a weekend and recording shows with friends. I mean, legally we are a business, but yes. And we couldn't do it without your wonderful support. We couldn't commission the amazing new intro for the Clickcast and all of our shows and bring you, I think you mentioned it last week, audio listeners, you dirty cheapskates out there. You get this in your ears for free every week because we subsidize your listening habits. That's right, we do. But I'm only joking. We do appreciate you all and thank you for your continued support. You guild heroes out there. Richie.
Yes.
Busy week.
Just a little busy, yeah.
Just a big one. But as I mentioned, Nintendo, it's been leaked, it's been theorized. We've been talking about it many times on this show, but it's finally happened. Nintendo stealth dropped on Thursday the introduction to the now officially titled Nintendo Switch 2. We got a reveal, and we've got a lot to cover. We've got a lot to get into. For those who haven't seen the video, it's basically a CG rendering of a original Switch. They start with that, and it kind of like breaks out of its casing and evolves. It's essentially a Pokemon evolution. It evolves in front of our very eyes into a much larger, more refined version of the Switch, which is now the Switch 2. Richie, where do you want to start with this one? Because we don't know a lot. It was very much... They are getting some criticism for not telling us... There was no like blog post to follow this that broke down its specs. There wasn't much in terms of games. It was very much just like, here's what it looks like, and you can guess how it's going to feel and such. But where do you want to start with all this?
Let's start with the criticism, because I've seen some weird stuff online by even like Eurogamer, who is usually a reliable source for us. We use them quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Kind of slating Nintendo a bit for being a bit too safe with it. But it's, from the impression I've got by existing, is what Nintendo fans were wanting from Nintendo for the next console, for the follow-up to the Switch, was another Switch, just better.
Yeah.
So some of the criticism, I know, and there's criticisms about not giving as much too much detail, but they did announce a Nintendo Direct for April. So I think that kind of criticism just kind of falls a bit hollow, really. It's like, oh, they didn't give us enough information, but they've told us when they're going to give us it.
Yeah, it's almost a bit like, because they're so big, it's almost you have to, I guess, make these anti-articles for clicks.
It feels forced negativity.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately.
And that's what happens when you are in first position, is sometimes people like to punch up to get you, to punch that power brick above your head. But in terms of what we saw, I personally felt like I would have liked to see a little bit more of the games, but I saw before my very eyes what I expected, which, and it kind of similar to you, what I'd hoped for. I'd like a bigger version with better specifications, which we know it's going to be better. It's no way in hell going to be any worse than the original, and that would be foolish. And we did learn a couple of snippets, which I guess we can break into. You did say that there is a direct coming on the 2nd of April, which... My initial first bugbear of this, like just for some genuine negative criticism, if you are going to put the date on something, that can be read as both February and April, depending if you're American or the entire rest of the world. Just write the words April. Just put 2.April.25. That's, you don't need to put just numbers if it's going to create confusion.
The thing is, I personally work in a highly regulated industry. So stuff like this actually really does annoy me, because it's been drilled into me. The date format, you have to write the date format in a specific way. And if I wrote that date at work and went to APR 2025, our quality team would come back to me and go, you need to put a 0 in front of that too. That's what I'm used to, at that level of strict.
Yeah.
You don't need to go that nuts, but just say to April. It's easy. There's less confusion, and just it's also that understanding that you're a global company. not every country in the world uses the same date format.
Yeah.
So use a date format that is universal.
Yeah, especially I watched
Just easy. It's
I
easy.
was fortunate enough to catch it live, so I watched the Nintendo of America live stream, and the live chat was like also confused because you can imagine the entire world was tuning in for this stealth drop because the video was just an update from Nintendo. It didn't explicitly say what the video was, so it was a very teaser. And there was also a little bit of confusion around the date because the 2nd of April date, I feel like a lot of people interpreted that as the console launch date. And it was only like kind of looking after the fact they went, oh no, this is the date for another video direct.
I don't put that on Nintendo because if you actually look at the trailer, it just says in big red letters Nintendo Direct and then the date.
Yeah, but as a commoner of the people out there, maybe a Nintendo Direct like that might not mean anything to you. If you just watch, if you've got a Switch that's 7-year-old and you've never interacted with any Nintendo marketing aside from TV,
but
you might just see the console reveal and then a date with something called a direct. Like, does that mean direct to the store, direct to my house? Is that delivery times?
At that point, you're already on the internet. You can just search that. You can just Google that in seconds. It's like
but
you're already there.
The common man is a foolish man.
No, the common man can. If you're jumping to conclusions, the wrong conclusion there without taking 30 seconds to type Nintendo Direct into Google, that's kind of on you.
True.
Like,
think of Timmy's poor old grandma who's going to be buying them for Christmas.
Who's watching you in Nintendo first look
trailer? She's a modern grandma. She's a modern grandma. But yes, we got the details. As I said, we know it's bigger than the last one. We know it's got slightly tweaked ergonomics. They've got rid of the slide clip-ons for the Joy-Cons. They're now magnetic. They've got a slightly different click the way they go together. But we don't know any specifications, so that's the thing. So I guess breaking down the trailer of what we saw, I guess the starting point to get into it and fully break it down is the naming convention. So we can stop theorizing it's going to be called the Super Switch, the Switch 2. We genuinely know it's now called that, which is actually in a weird way after Nintendo's 100-year history. It's the first time they've actually done a direct sequel to their tech with an actual numbered entry.
Yeah, numbered entry. But I would argue the Super Nintendo is a direct sequel in the same vein to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
In terms of tech progression, but in terms of marketing and talking about product, we've got PS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Xbox kind of just do something weird, but this is the first sequential following. They did go back one time. Remember the 3DS to the 2DS? They did go back over.
That was a different console within the same generation, though.
And just concept-wise, it was just funny because they did go back over.
Yeah.
But it's not the Super Switch. They didn't change it completely and go like the Nintendo Snap, which I saw some people asking about. Yeah. And they just went, you know what? The Switch has got it's a big powerhouse of a brand now. There's 145 million sold. I think it makes perfect business sense to, for once, just 100%. Put aside the Wii U and doing something crazy and different for the Nintendo. I was going to bring up the Wii U. And because that confused people.
I think the Wii U isn't a terrible console in itself. I think it was terribly marketed. No one knew what the hell it was.
Yeah. Is it a peripheral for the Wii? Is it
calling this the Switch 2? Mm-hmm. This is the second iteration of the Switch generation of consoles.
Yeah.
I think that's fairly self-evident. And they've kind of doubled down on that. It's very now notable. I might as well bring it up now. One of the biggest things I wanted from this is it's fully backwards compatible, both digitally and physically.
Asterisk. That is not for everything. Some games may not be supported or functional.
May not,
but I think there's a reason.
Caveat that I think every single console ever is going to have a caveat, just in case there's something that doesn't work and they can't figure out why, and it's not worth the time and effort to put in.
Well, speaking of compatibility, my theory behind that one is that obviously the Switch over its like 8-year, 9-year, whatever it is, life cycle by the time this comes out, you've got things like Nintendo Labo and like the Ring Fit Adventure and stuff, which may not be compatible because it might not have the same kind of gyroscope sensors, the AR sensors built into it that we know of as it stands. So it is as a business just protecting itself from saying, look, the cartridge will go in, but the Joy-Cons or the console itself may not support the actual motion control or the gameplay mechanics. So
it's entirely possible you have to connect a set of all Joy-Cons for specific titles, depending what they've done, because we know very little in terms of specs. Yeah. It's a safety measure just to keep themselves covered legally. That's all it is, that asterisk to me.
Absolutely.
But right now.
In terms of the backwards compatibility, I think both you and me are absolutely thrilled with that one. I think
it's always a good move.
Yeah, it's
always a good move.
In looking at the way PlayStation and Xbox kind of duel things out, and Phil Spencer's open admission of that, Xbox lost that PS4 generation because people wanted to bring their libraries with them as we moved into that digital era. And although Nintendo owners traditionally are actually a lot more physical, I'm pretty sure their market for physical to digital is still about 50-50 compared to the other two.
Is weird considering the format of the Switch.
I think it's age. I think Nintendo's been around for so long. Your audience naturally kind of sits in that generation. We do. I like to have the cartridge physical.
But I think Nintendo pitch at a younger audience, though. So they have long-standing like fans, but their core audience, I think, is probably younger than Xbox and PlayStation. Maybe
it's something to do with what we spoke about I think we spoke about in our Discord actually over Christmas time, thinking like you might have a younger audience, but if I'm a parent of said child, I would like to get them a physical gift for their birthday or Christmas rather than a digital download. So you've almost almost like nipping it at both ends, where the parents who have the console for themselves prefer physical because that's what they grew up with, and then the younger audience, which the parents are actively buying for because they're too young to buy it themselves, they're getting gifted them for Christmas and birthdays. And there is something to be said about giving them a physical thing to take with them. And the form factor is so much easier, isn't it? The little tiny cartridges compared to a disc.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get scratched. You can't eat it because it tastes disgusting. And
Flash media now is probably actually as good as, if not better than disc-based media anyway.
And those lack
storage,
those downloads, download times, when you pop a cartridge in, the game just boom. So good. So we've got backwards compatibility for the most part, which in a way it kind of makes me feel a bit how I did about the PS4 to PS5. Is that my PS4 became almost immediately redundant because I only really game in one main room. I know you have different reasons, but in terms of the Switch, I immediately said to my wife the other day, I was like, my daughter can have my original Switch. It's a bit battered now because I've got it secondhand anyway. She's played with it a couple of times. I don't think it will survive into beyond her toddler years. However, because I'm getting a Switch 2 that's got backwards compatibility, it's bigger, it's better in every single way.
You don't care?
I kind of don't care in a way. Like, and because I lean more towards PlayStation, will she hell be able to touch any of my PlayStation stuff? But the Nintendo Switch with the family-friendly form factor and little fingers and hands, I think, that will be her first console now. I've decided many, many months, years in advance.
One of my nephew's first console is a Switch, and he loves it. It's a brilliant first console. It absolutely is. Mm-hmm. And the Joy-Cons, might be a bit small for our hands, the original ones, Switch 2s look a bit bigger. They're absolutely no problem for him.
Absolutely. So speaking of the Joy-Cons then, we got a look at magnetic Joy-Cons, as I alluded to earlier in our conversation. They kind of snap on from the sides. There has been a little bit of reservation around the clip-on nature because it is using magnetics. However, there's a tiny little kind of like a prong, I guess, that it's going to clip onto, like a connector. And I've seen a few people online say like it's like looks scarily fragile, sticking out from the side of each Switch.
I'm not overly concerned because I assume Nintendo, like they did with the original Switch, did a lot of R&D on this. Mm-hmm. They will have done lots of stress tests. They know this is going to be in the hands of a lot of young kids and stuff. They will have made sure that as a potential fail point is secure.
Yeah.
This is just where I think you have to just kind of trust like the integrity of a company like Nintendo that they are going to make a robust solution.
Yeah. You've got to imagine there was like 100 prototypes with different type of connectors, and this is the one they settled on.
Just to get in front of it, I know people in the comments may bring up Joy-Con drift, which is absolutely a reasonable thing to bring up against what I've just said, because Joy-Con drift should not be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to focus on that in the video a little bit. They spent a lot of time zooming in almost on the sticks and showed how they rotated and wiggled, and it was like, I feel like they're almost like a subtle nod to like, we know.
Part of me wonders, doesn't feel like a Nintendo move, but to put Hall effect joysticks in there, which are very much less prone to drift.
I think so.
But it doesn't feel like something that Nintendo would do. I don't know why, but maybe if they're focusing on with how much they were hammered by Joy-Con drift with the Switch, didn't really affect sales. and they did actually put a lot of schemes in place at various points to replace them, it does feel like maybe they've went for the next iteration. We absolutely cannot have a repeat of that. How do we do it? Let's just go overkill with the tech.
Yeah, well,
on that one element.
There is someone over on Blue Sky called Laura Kate Dale who does point out that, aside from the Switch news, Nintendo did have a patented control design that include the magnetic Hall effect that you're talking about there for the analog sticks. So I said, don't know if it times with the Switch 2 launch, but it seems like the patent filings line up like perfectly for a new console launch.
Yeah, I mean, there is actually, you can actually buy Hall effect replacements for your Switch already, if that is what you prefer.
Yeah.
Basically, they're using magnets. They're using magnets to prevent the drift. If you want to know more about Hall effect, go research it, because to be honest, I can't be asked myself.
Yeah. Well, speaking of drift, though, with your Joy-Cons, the trailer also showed off, Richie, the two Joy-Cons, almost running independent to the console. They're not only did they detach, but they seemed to kind of just run off for a little bit and have a little saunter across the CGI landscape of the video, with the little wrist strap attached to them, which, let's face it, they look like mice. They look like two little coloured mice running around, which leads to a lot of speculation going around that this is going to have some kind of mouse element to it for the Switch 2. And I think it's an absolute slam dunk shoe-in. I don't think they would show it off in this particular visual way if they weren't going to be able to be used as mice. And I think it does bring something unique to the Switch 2 in terms of what genres you should be able to play and how you can maybe interact. Like, could you imagine playing Call of Duty, which we know we're going to get, or a shooter like the Metroid Prime game, Prime 4, sorry, that's possibly part of the launch line, which we'll talk about games in a short while. But could you imagine using a left and right joystick as a one to look around and one to aim with? Like that, like a 3D
like a mouse and keyboard, almost like that sounds horrendous, to be honest. With the width of the Joy-Con, I think you're more looking at maybe some more basic
Civ 7
stuff. So yeah, something like a Civ game could work better. I wouldn't go for anything fast paced. But
I mean, let's be honest, they're not going to be comfortable to hold for too long with that form factor. No. You're going to have claw wrists before no time.
Unless they get some sort of peripheral.
I guess, yeah. I mean, looking at the
mouse coin
is it called the Pro Grip, if I recall, from the last one?
Yeah.
You could have like a mouse grip. Yeah.
Yeah, like just the mouse con grip or something.
Mouse con grip, yeah. They'll give it some cute name, won't they?
You know what? I'm all for it if it's like, you know what, you're adding some like almost like a computer mouse functionality potentially to it. It expands what the library of games can be, expands what the console can do. But it looks like it's done in a way that doesn't take anything away from what the console is. And it gives it a gimmick worthy of a second iteration of the console.
Yeah. So mice games potentially coming. I think I 100% think this console is going to launch with some kind of snipper clips game or some family-friendly game that's going to use the mice in some kind of weird, quirky Nintendo way. That's just what they do. Remember shaking the ice cubes?
Or arms.
Or arms, yeah, punch and stuff like that, or Nintendo Labo. So yeah, look out for that one. But it does lend credence to some games that we may potentially get on the console that wouldn't otherwise have worked, or they would have had to be touchscreen. So we'll get to that when we talk about the games in particular. Back to the console in itself, Richie. The display. Like, my only potential tipping point for not getting one of these at launch is we know Nintendo in the past with the latest Switch had the original, then we had the Lite, and then we ended up with the OLED, which looks stunningly beautiful, and every game looks more vibrant and beautiful on the Switch OLED. Do we think they double down with OLED for this model, or do they keep costs down by going LCD?
My thoughts are I would love them to go OLED, but I feel that's going to be a second model later down the line.
Yeah.
I think the big part of the display is the original Switch runs at 1080p docked or 720p handheld. I think this is going to be full 1080p. I think that's what they're going to be using to push it. That it's a full 1080p handheld Switch. And I think as well, with the backwards compatibility, they're going to be pushing hard games like Tears of the Kingdom, playing full 1080p as if it was the original one docked, but now in handheld mode.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be pushing stuff like that to show the generational shift.
Yep.
I'm not sure it's going to be OLED. And to be honest, OLED is beautiful. It's amazing. It's not actually necessary, I think, for the portable version. I think because I personally do use my Switch pretty much always portable, but a lot of people leave it docked all the time. So I think that's ideally for me actually to have just two at launch, with and without OLED.
Yeah.
So if you want that, you can pay the extra to get it.
Yeah, I think I'd quite happily pay for the OLED at launch just to have that like kind of top tier one.
The problem I have is if it's not at launch, I'm probably not getting the OLED, because when the Switch OLED came out, I saw, okay, it's a nicer screen, but I didn't think it was worth selling my Switch to pay more to get another Switch just for that one thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't come with any performance benefits. Oddly enough, I now have a Switch OLED because my girlfriend bought one, but
is that hers though?
That's hers.
So you don't have one.
Yeah, but I've actually got plans to
steal it from her in the middle of the night.
I've got plans for my my Switch to end up in the hands of one of my other nephews, and we'll just keep hers.
I see. And then you get the nice shiny Switch too.
Yes. Well, no. Probably eventually.
Probably. So big screen. It is also, again, to keep ping ponging back and forth. We know some additional features that come with it as standard. USB-C seems to the charging port is at the top of the screen, so it means and the bottom. So you've got two inputs, which means you can charge it either which way. Because I know some people had issues with that if you were like trying to play with it and charge it at the same time.
Yeah, because it's awkward when you're holding it and the wire's running down. It's much more comfortable for the wire running from the top. So adding a second USB-C, relatively inexpensive just to put it on there.
Yeah. Normal kickstands, of course, is part of this. They showed them off. Typical. I mean, it's pretty much, again, a reiteration of the Switch. I've seen the display coming in for some criticism for the bezels. Don't know how you feel about bezels, because sometimes you kind of don't notice them when you're in-game. But in terms of screen ratio with the phones that we get nowadays, they do well to hide it in the professional images they put out. But when you see the little clip of Mario Kart running, it does kind of make you think, like, could they not have just, like, they covered it up in a better way?
Personally, I think people make way too much of a big deal of a bit of a bezel. I don't think the bezels on the Switch are egregious at all. And bear in mind, you have to attach controllers to the side of this, so you're going to have some form of bezel. And it's also aimed at being suitable for children.
Yeah.
So it gives a bit more flexibility. I don't think the size of the bezels are egregious.
Yeah.
And honestly, is anyone who obsesses over bezels really telling me if you're sat there playing your Switch, all you keep caring about is a little black line around the edge of the bloody console? If you're playing a game and enjoying yourself, you don't give a damn. I think it's making way too much out of nothing.
That's fair. It could also mess with the aspect ratio as well.
Again, people complain about the bezels on the phone and put the phone inside a case, which then effectively adds a bloody bezel.
Yeah.
So it's like,
That's
I've just
true.
never really got it too much.
Yeah, it's comparing for comparing's sake, I think.
Yeah.
We get the kickstand as per usual. I should say the kickstand that has a slightly more lean back nature to it. I don't know if you saw that. It's like a proper full-on kickstand that does. They showed it in the pictures. It leans right back like a sunbed, which is almost, I think, going back to people's points of the first model. Like you could only stand it at a very particularly sharp angle. Which if you're like laying on the bed or you've got it on a table surface, it is quite limiting. Whereas they make a point of showing it like going and like wobbling right down almost like beyond 45 degrees,
stopping at various things. I think might be a smooth adjustment, so you can just set the angle to suit you.
Absolutely.
Never use my kickstand though.
No, I don't really have nails, so I struggle to even get it out.
I don't know when I would use the kickstand personally. If you're playing multiplayer on the go, yeah, I can get that. But that's the only real usage case of it, because if you're playing single player, you might as well just be holding the bloody thing.
Yeah, true. Very true.
I suppose some people use it on flights and then use like a pro controller or something as well. So
yeah,
I suppose there is benefits there, but a better kickstand is not a bad thing.
You mean you're not going to be playing it on a roof at a party in the middle of summer like the original Switch trailer showed, like a group of adults all gathering around with their Switches and playing it on a rooftop party?
In 8 years, I've never once done that.
No.
So
we're missing the true reason to have a Switch. But yeah, so like bouncing around, is there any other ergonomics? I guess the one for me is the color choice. They distinctly showed off the like baby blue and the kind of like peachy red color throughout it. Any thoughts on that as like the go-to choice?
Well, as someone who hates the two-tone controls on my Switch, this is better because it's more subtle.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I used to have just the grey Joy-Cons on my Switch, but then the broke, and the only ones I could get was blue and red. And I hate it. I actually just don't like it. I think it just looks tacky, the two-tone controls. I don't like them being coloured, but I like them both the same.
Yeah.
This is better, for me personally, better, but this is very subjective.
It's one of those...
I think, actually, though, despite what I'm saying, I think this is probably not a great move for them. Because they've probably sold millions of Joy-Cons in all sorts of different colours. Now they're restricting themselves.
At least when the Joy-Cons are clipped in, you can't really see.
Yeah.
The colour's very much just around the nubbins.
Personally, I just want them black. I don't care about the colour on them. Black. Maybe put a few touches of colour here. Same colour on both sides.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do love the two different colour Joy-Cons and all the various different collectible ones.
It's definitely a choice.
The grey with just a touch of colour in there it gives you less to work with.
Yeah. So apparently we're a big enough show for sponsorship now, guys. So check out this ad.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Jeremy.
We're comedians. And what's worse, we're comedians who love to talk about video games. Yikes! We host a podcast called Super NPC Games Club.
On this book club style series, we discuss games like Super Mario 64, Mass Effect, and Pokemon Yellow, covering them chapter by chapter to ensure that no line of goofy dialogue or moment of developer perversion gets missed. I'm looking at you, Sonic Adventure.
If you've been dying to hear piping hot takes about the little hat Mr. X wears in Resident Evil 2, then this is the podcast for you.
So check out the Super NPC Games Club anywhere podcasts can be found, and empty your belly because it's about to be full of laughs.
It does. Remember the original one did launch with the two-tone, but then you did also get a grey model, so I presume they're going to follow suit with that as well.
Possibly, yeah. I actually had the grey, but then now I've since bought a two-tone ones because the grey ones were just harder to get your hands on.
Right, no, fair enough. I mean, that's why I'm thinking about OLED, because personally I think the white OLED Switch looks gorgeous. Like, it's weird, I don't really like the white on my PS5, but on the Switch it kind of just works. I don't know if it's like a handheld to like big chunky console the size of a PC tower difference. Like, I think because the Switch is so much sleeker, white maybe works for it a little bit better. But
Zelda Switch OLED.
You'll get that, and you'll get the Mario Red one's quite sexy as well from the original lineup. Moving on to the stand, though, we also got a new iteration of the Switch dock stand. It's got it's basically a typical. It's going to be a cheap bit of plastic that the Switch docks into.
It's a USB-C cable.
With a glorified connector.
Well, actually, no. It's more than a USB-C cable. It's a little USB hub that probably will contain an Ethernet port, a couple of USB-A ports, and a USB-C connector to the Switch.
Yeah.
And power.
And a Yoshi egg.
But it's a cool design, though. Like, the Switch dock in general, and this, they've just cut the corners off.
Yeah, pretty much just shave those edges down and whack the new logo on there. One of the things I do hope is they've addressed the issue with a lot of people had with their original Switch. If you remember, the screen was being scratched when it got docked. If you weren't quite careful with it.
That. Yeah,
I think I noticed that because I got mine secondhand. It's one of the rarest pieces of tech I've very, very rarely bought secondhand. And like mine has like little tiny scratches on it where the previous owners obviously just like whacked it in the dock without thinking twice. Right down the middle, and it's like, God damn you.
There's two ways you could probably fix that one on the dock where you just, I don't know, make any plastic parts that will be coming in contact with screen softer so they don't scratch. Yeah. Or you make the screen harder. You put a harder screen on there.
Yeah.
use like more modern glass,
Gorilla
because,
Glass,
like Gorilla, a higher grade of Gorilla Glass or something.
Yeah.
There's options. Personally, what I did is I got like a sleeve, a Legend of Zelda sleeve, and put it over.
Right, I see.
Which it looks cool. So that's how I didn't even have to think about it, because it was just literally a bit of cloth over it.
I mean, in a lot of the images they showed off and in the trailer, there's a lot of still images that are going around that don't have any color to it as well. So I think we could see a couple of Nintendo have options, don't they, for basically this at launch. I think 2 SKUs would be great to have, just the standard Switch for like cheaper price, and then a premium Switch, which we've seen Xbox do it with the X and S, we've seen PlayStation do it with the PS5, and then the Pro, and then the Slim. So I think having 2 SKUs isn't like Apple and phones do it all the time. They're just different models, and I think it gives you consumers the choice to pick between them.
Yeah, I wouldn't go nuts with it. I think I'd largely keep most of the specs the same, but I will probably just upgrade, give it a screen upgrade. Yeah, basically what they did with the OLED. But I think having it at launch rather than like about 4 or 5 years later, I think it's a bit more consumer friendly, because then I'm going in with the decision to make: do I pay them more for the better screen, or do I save my money and go for that one? And then, so when the OLED came out, it's like I would have loved to switch OLED when it came out, but I just couldn't justify it any way, shape, or form. It didn't make any sense for a console, which is largely my tertiary console, that I just largely played Nintendo exclusives on.
Yeah, they're relying on double dipping people. Speaking of exclusives, Richie, let's get a little bit into the game talk. The CGI trailer did show off a new Mario Kart, which of course Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been doing the rounds for like 7-8 years now.
It was a Wii U game.
It's like an 11-12-year-old game at its core. And we did get some Mario Kart teased off. Now the sleuths out there on the internet have broken it down and basically said that it's a new Mario Kart because the track's new. And the eagle-eyed viewers amongst you folks out there also noticed that on the Lightning Start grid, it looks like there's up to 24 slots for races, which traditionally it's been limited to 12, even online, which is leading some people to think, like, what is the next iteration of Mario Kart? Like, what do you do differently? They've always had, like, something unique. Mario Kart 8 introduced the kind of hover mechanics and the going upside down. Before that, we had, like, Double Dash, which had, like, 2 characters in like, little sidecars. Is the version of Mario Kart we're about to see, Richie, is it going to be almost like a live service Mario Kart? They tease us a little bit with Deluxe DLC, like 7-8 years after initial launch. Remember, we got the booster packs. So is 2025 and the launch of the Switch the right year where Mario Kart, it's already a staple in millions and millions of people's homes. It just becomes a platform like Mario Kart Online, and like it's ever present. And it launches with the Switch too, of course. Pack in.
Yes. What I was thinking actually with the amount of players is I hope this actually leans towards one of the biggest hardware improvements that actually the Switch needs to do. Better internet connectivity. The Switch's network card kind of crappy.
Yeah.
If you have a Switch in your house, run a net speed test on all the devices on your house. You can probably do it through your Google Mesh system. And look at the speed, the upload and download speed of the Switch compared to, say, your PS5 in the same room.
Potato.
And you wonder why Nintendo's online offerings have been a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
It's a limiting factor. So if they're going to push 24 players as the big gimmick for Mario Kart, that does suggest that they have been working behind the scenes on the infrastructure, their internet, their online infrastructure. And also the hardware on the Switch is probably more modern.
Absolutely.
More up to speed in that sense.
And
which is great news going forward in general. But yeah, I think Mario Kart Live Service makes sense. Even if it is just a generational game, you go, start of the generation, here's your Mario Kart, we're going to support for the entire generation. Next generation, buy the next one.
I mean, again, to go back to 8 Deluxe, like that's supported 2 generations now.
Yeah,
and
that's
no one's batted an eye at it. When you're saying about the network connectivity, I think this goes back to a long-standing partnership that they've been growing gradually with Microsoft and Xbox, and I could see the Azure network helping out a lot, and I think in return for that we are going to see, because of the jump up in power, I think we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more Xbox titles, as we are with PlayStation, coming across to the Switch 2, because if it's bump up in power and its ability to support better quality games, and the deal that Microsoft brokered during the Activision Blizzard King buyout, remember they said the Switch is going to have Call of Duty going forward when it's like first capable. Do we see a Call of Duty on Switch later this year? Like, could the launch window of the Switch have your Mario Kart and whatever else from Nintendo, but then also it's going to see third-party support massively?
Yes, I think it will.
Warzone? I think Warzone will probably be the first to drop because it's ever-present.
Warzone is an interesting test for it because that game is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be... I'd be doubtful that the Switch would have the storage to actually install the game.
Well, that goes back to another point we've not discussed. Memory capacity. I don't see no SD card slot on these renders.
Sure, there must be something.
I mean,
haven't noticed,
could it be hid under the kickstand? Could it be in the same slot as the game cartridge is going? Let me know, chat.
Be.
Let me know, chat. Where's it hiding? Where's that lovely SD slot hiding? Because remember what killed the Vita was the memory card issues.
I think on the original Switch it was hidden behind the kickstand.
Tucked under, yeah. I think that's why I couldn't get to it, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right in terms of game size. As the Switch 2 inevitably comes with more power, that means the games it's able to play are larger. So
yeah, it definitely needs a memory upgrade compared to the original Switch.
What's
the
the
original
Switch
is...
with?
Oh god, I want to say it's like 128 kilobytes.
I was thinking one. No, won't be kilobytes. So not a potato
it's not that
network
bad, but...
in kilobytes. Yeah, it can store 2 photographs. for you. I reckon 128's the standard.
I think it is 128. You can get in 32 gigabytes of internal storage. You can get micro SDs up to 2 terabytes are compatible.
Yeah, and they're fairly inexpensive now as well.
But my thing is, though, an SD card is an add-on sale. You're only getting, with the original Switch, 32 gigabytes out the box.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
It's not by today's standard.
Internally, I think that needs to be close at least 500 going forward. If Nintendo are probably the best company in the world at optimizing their games for underpowered hardware. So the amount that they can get, the quality of games that they can get in such a small memory space and running so well with underpowered hardware is just actually insane when you think about it. But if they're going to be opening the doors more to third party, to the likes of Microsoft, to things like Call of Duty, you cannot rely on the other studios to do that. You have to have the memory capacity to facilitate it.
Yeah, and the memory card's not necessarily the answer because the process rate in which the console will be able to read the memory card, it's always going to be slower, even if it's conditioned for it. It's trying to read from a separate source, so you're going to have a delay in that.
I'm not against having an optional memory expansion at all.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you're going, this is part of your marketing is going to be, this can play modern games such as Call of Duty Warzone, then that needs to be installable on that platform out the box.
Yeah, I agree.
I imagine it won't be the same version. It might be a shrunk down version of it somehow. But,
So pivoting this conversation back towards the games that might run on this reduced memory or not, what are we thinking for launch games then? I think Mario Kart 9 or whatever it's going to be called, I think we're both pretty much guaranteed that's going to be a launch/pack-in.
It'd be weird if it wasn't.
Yeah, in terms of a launch window then, thinking about launch heading into the Christmas season inevitably, what are we thinking? The Mario Odyssey team been working on anything? Zelda Studio?
I have heard rumours that it's a 3D Mario will follow. Mario Kart will be at launch, and a 3D Mario will follow in the same year. Makes me wonder: is this going to be like a June-July launch with Mario Kart and a Mario Odyssey 2? Let's call it.
Yeah,
will launch in maybe October, November for the Christmas push.
Well, off the top of my head, thinking when the original NES came out, it must be Mario's 40th anniversary soon. in the
I'm not
next
sure.
year or the year after? Like, when did his first appearance was in Donkey Kong, wasn't it? So you're talking 85, 86, give or take. And NES was 85, right? So
Donkey Kong was 81.
But depends if he wasn't Mario though, and that was he was this Jumpman. So
Yeah,
maybe
he's been
it was
retconned.
but since. But maybe it was his first official outing then. Just when's Mario's 40th anniversary? It must be soon.
I think that is probably a hard one to put down. It's like, when do you call his first adventure?
Well, they've celebrated his 25th, I think. Sorry, not 35th or something. I can't remember now. I know he's got an anniversary due.
Just quick wiki check. The first game that had Mario in the title of the game was Mario Bros. In 1983 on the Game & Watch.
Yeah, it depends where Nintendo, I guess, classify him.
So I would say that is a viable first Mario game, because all the other games he's been featured in before were Donkey Kong games.
Mm-hmm.
But that was already mean, sorry, past.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's 45th anniversary. Well, either way, there's going to be some kind of anniversary. Yeah. But more back to the point. Odyssey haven't had a 3D Mario since the Switch launched, and then we haven't had a 3D one. We had the new Super Mario Bros. I think, and we had Mario Wonder, didn't we? So Mario Maker, maybe a Mario Maker. But then with backwards compatibility, Nintendo really need to be cautious about, will people care as much if you can just stick the old cartridge in and enjoy that game? This is where the interesting dynamic is for the Switch 2, is the success of the Switch is they've actually leaned heavily on the Wii U library that was underlooked. They don't have that option now. So they are almost going to miss out on the opportunity to pad it out with remasters, essentially. Like, look at this week, Donkey Kong came out, didn't it? They won't have that option because they've pretty much done everything from the Wii U and ported it over.
Yeah, I think you're going to I think there will be a Mario game, because the last 3D Mario game, as you mentioned, is Super Mario Odyssey. It was in 2017.
Crazy.
That's 8 years. He has had other games, quite a lot of other games, for everything from RPGs, ports, remakes, remasters, 2D platformers, party games. But he hasn't had a 3D platformer. So I think that's probably year one.
Yeah. That's a good shout.
I think, to be honest, if you're coming out year one of the Switch 2 going, you get Mario Kart straight out the gate, and in a few months' time you can have the next big 3D Mario game, that's a decent start.
Oh, yes.
And then with the backwards compatibility, I think it's more than just going to be more than just it runs games. I think there's going to be select titles that they're going to focus on that runs the games significantly better than the Switch did. And I'm eyeing up the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom for that. Some Pokemon games.
I mean, we'll be
maybe
due a Pokemon.
Legends Arceus is due out this year. Not Legends Arceus, Legends Z to A is due out this year. So you might even go, Legends Arceus is now running smoother. There's enhancements that can be had from like the back end of the Switch library, where things were starting. You could start at points to feel the age of the console. These are prime things to go, we can show you what these games are truly capable of with better hardware. I think Zelda is probably a smart move for that as a selling point, because as good as Tears of the Kingdom was, there was occasionally frame issues, and with it being a big open world title, if you're getting that thing running 10 on handheld 1080p, and maybe instead of locked at 30 frames per second 720, you're running at 60 frames 1080p, suddenly that's you're showing off why you should buy this console.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, back to my point about not having a Wii U library to lean on, the improved, no doubt, specifications of the Switch 2, if it does bring up, I think, as a lot of us are suspecting, it'll bring it up in level with the PS4, maybe the PS4 Pro generation. That would then open the door to a lot of third party going, actually, we can now get these games to run very, very easily. I mean, let's face it, the original Switch has The Witcher running on it now. It's got a lot of ports that, quite frankly, I'm shocked that they're able to run on the Switch.
Nintendo are masters.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute masters of the underpowered hardware.
So then it does make you think, like, what did we get through PS4 and Xbox One generation that actually it'll run pretty damn fine on the Switch 2 now? And we've seen through games like Fortnite and Warzone and stuff that actually there's so many more people still playing on their older hardware, like the PS4, that actually the lengthening generation that PlayStation, Xbox are having is almost giving Switch the benefit of the doubt, where traditionally people would say the Switch is left behind before it's even started because of the power. But I think we've seen such diminishing returns over the last decade that it's almost coming into its own, where it's like, it doesn't matter now if you're so far behind in the tech race because graphics aren't everything anymore. So it's about the games, and Nintendo have always been king at that.
It's what you do with the power matters more, and how much power you have available. Because if you're obsessed over the power of your hardware, go buy top-end gaming PC. Mm-hmm. That is the best way to play games. Full stop. I don't think it's even an argument. What Nintendo do, they're providing other things like, they weren't going head-to-head with the PS4 and the Xbox One when they brought out the Switch. What they went is, you guys are doing the home console thing. Actually, we've become the absolute dominating the mobile gaming market with the DS especially, and then slightly lesser so the 3DS, which is more of really a continuation of it. Mm-hmm. And we want to get back into the home console. Let's just do these two things at once. And the Switch, everyone went, "Yep, you've done it."
Yeah.
And after 8 years, it's like, okay, your console's starting to feel its age. Can we have this again, but better?
Yeah. Give it a boost. But, the power isn't everything. And like Uncle Ben once said, with great power comes great responsibility. So
he also used to sell rice.
He did. Very nice. Very nice. Other than that, in terms of games, is this the generation we maybe see Game Pass, cloud gaming, Xbox cloud gaming? We know
I think
Microsoft, technically remember their campaign, this is an Xbox. Is the Nintendo Switch 2 an Xbox?
I don't know.
We're not ready yet?
I think cloud gaming is something they dabbled with the Switch, and I feel like they could
it didn't
look a bit more into
it. Did it?
I think, because as I said, the internet connectivity issues, I think, held it back. I feel like maybe cloud gaming could be another spring in this, another like arrow in this particular console's quiver, where especially some of the biggest titles, where maybe there is a bit of a memory issue, maybe Call of Duty Warzone, you can't install it, so you have to play it through the cloud. But if you have that internet connectivity good enough, well, there you go. Maybe, wouldn't it be hilarious if Nintendo, through the Switch 2, are actually the ones to kind of truly crack cloud gaming? To make it mass appeal.
That would be hilarious.
It's possible. Like,
who did
by
they
doing
use?
it without even letting people realize they were doing it.
Yeah. Who did they use? Can you remember? Because it wasn't any of the big ones. It was like another random company, wasn't it, they used for their streaming tech? I can't really remember.
I'm trying to remember. Wasn't it Resident Evil was one of the ones?
Yeah, Resident Evil was one of the first ones. I think it was either Village or 7 ran. I remember I tried the demo out, because you get like an initial demo, don't you, to see if your actually internet speed's good enough to cope with it. But it's been that long since we've actually spoke about it. I can't even remember who does it now. I feel like it was something that started with a V, but I can't remember. Comments chat if you're back in the Stadia days, if you remember the company they used to port not import them, to host the ones. I'm not too sure. Capcom's Journey. I mean, not that it's too important with this one, but yeah, either way,
I can't find it.
So you can play Village, Biohazard, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 3.
Ubisoft.
That's the one. Yeah, I was going to say that, but then it sounded too close to Ubisoft. Ubisoft Cloud Gaming. So either way, plenty to see. What about Metroid Prime 4? That's announced as a Switch game, but I'm guessing it might do the Zelda
wasn't
crossover.
It a bit in development? Wasn't it a bit in development hell?
No, it got a new trailer, remember? It got a new trailer through the summer. So
yeah, I think this might be a crossover game. Maybe next year, if they want to get a few big titles out, I think a new open world Zelda game is probably quite a bit off. So having met, and if they're doubling up with Mario this year, what's coming next year? Maybe is Metroid Prime is one of the big games that they're thinking for next year.
And it gives the library a little bit of variation as well. You can't everything can't just be a cute little 3D cartoony thing. You do want that, and I think that's with it being a bit more powerful. It'll be interesting to see, especially between now and launch, because we've again, they haven't really given us a launch date. We know about the Direct, but we don't actually know when the console's coming. So people are theorizing summer to maybe late autumn in time for Christmas, which is, it's annoying that it's a little bit far out, but that also gives third party a long time to start. And now, like, the cat's out of the bag now, right? So all these developers and publishers can start saying, actually, yes, you will be getting our next FC26 game will be on the Switch too. You'll be getting, and again, the big one, Richie, is when Microsoft come out in the summer and start saying, like, you will see the next Call of Duty on Switch 2. You will see whatever from EA or Assassin's Creed Shadows on the Switch 2.
It's what would you do if Nintendo were the actual Nintendo Direct were the ones who announced the next mainline Call of Duty game?
If it was closer to like autumn, like August, September, I'd be like, oh, maybe.
Not Microsoft. Nintendo went first with a Direct to announce it, because that would be an absolute bloody move.
It would.
I couldn't see Microsoft allowing that.
It would. No, certainly not. But aside from that, to kind of wrap things up on the Switch conversation, is that, yes, there is a Direct, which is no doubt going to tell us a bit more about the game and the console. We'll probably get the specs at some point. Probably leak before then, but at that point, you'd like to think they've got to tell us about this. I guess the last thing is Nintendo have been quoted as saying that they aim to sell 20 million units in year one, which seemingly means these things are stockpiled already. We know from leaks and accessory manufacturers that these things have been pretty much ready to go in warehouses through China and the rest of the world for a long, long time. So it doesn't surprise me that Nintendo are sitting on a good couple million units to ready to ship. To boil it all down, Richie, to pricing, where are we sitting at on how much? What's the sweet spot for the Switch? And will they? I don't think Nintendo are the type of company or foolish enough to go all in with like a PS5 Pro. Astronomical leap forward. I think they'll keep it family friendly, which is what they're aiming for, and let's face it, cost effective.
Yeah, so the Switch OLED, I think it's
$350, right? $349,
$300. I think it is nowadays.
Is it though? Because they don't even get price drops, do they? That's the thing with the.
Looking at both Smiths and Argos in the UK, both of them are selling Switch OLEDs for $300.
All right.
Nintendo are selling a $310 to $320. I think, you're looking in.
Ooh, Amazon,
so that's I'm just bringing that up as a kind of reference point.
Oh, $264 on Amazon for a white OLED model. Not bad, that.
Yeah, I was avoiding Amazon because they do weird random discounts based on how much stock they have in the warehouse, where I think other companies are a bit more stable with the pricing. Which is it's great for buying from Amazon for that reason, but for trying to figure out the price of the next console, it's not that.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 350 to 400 range. I wouldn't be surprised if it is on the upper end, but it depends on the specs actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If they keep it relatively low, like LCD screen, don't go crazy on internal memory,
and they do run the risk as well. Mm-hmm. They run the Wii U issue where people look at it and go, I've already got a Wii.
Yeah, I've already got a Switch.
That's the risk they run. And with that 20 million in year one, they're going to need the software because this being fully, the downside of it, a console being fully backwards compatible is people are just going to look at it and go, I'm going to wait for enough software to be able to justify the upgrade.
Yeah.
So it might not be like a year one purchase for people. It might be a year 2 or 3 purchase.
That's why I suspect Mario Kart to be a pack-in.
Yeah. So, but if your price is too high, you're going to encourage that sort of behavior. I'm going to wait to see how the software library develops.
Yeah.
So, I think 350 to 400 is where I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm going 399 2 colours, and Mario Kart 9 or whatever it ends up being will be a package.
It already has 2 colours. That's blue and peach.
I mean, well, 3 colours.
Or salmon.
2 SKUs of colours. Then I'll say.
Yeah.
$3.99. Never here.
I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't a white one, because a lot of people do like white tech nowadays.
Like the white one.
So they go black and white.
If only. Pokemon. But yeah, Richie, that's, I guess, our insights into the official Nintendo Switch 2. And we'll know more about that, obviously, in the coming weeks and months and stuff. We'll see. Who knows? At the Xbox Developer Direct next week, we might see Xbox announce something sneaky. Like, oh, yeah, and this is coming to the Switch 2. They might be the first people partners to say, like, they're the only ones with a showcase so close to the announcement of this console that they could drop a cheeky Switch 2 logo onto the end of one of the games to talk about. Yeah. South of Midnight looks like it could run on the Switch 2.
You actually had the logo as part of like a discussion thing, and like, there's not really much to say. It's the same logo with 2.
It's a lazy, just a whack a big 2 next to it.
Yeah.
But moving on from the Switch then into other worlds, we do obviously cover other platforms on the podcast. I want to jump over to some big Sony news this week. It came out this morning, so we're recording this on a Friday. Friday morning it came out that Sony, behind the scenes, have only gone and done the dirty and cancelled 2 games in development. So this seems to be common practice at the moment. We know The Last of Us factions are online, got cancelled, and we know behind the scenes they started looking a little bit closer at reshuffling the deck after the epic failure that was Concord. But Sony has revealed this Friday via a Bloomberg article that it's cancelled PS5 projects from both Bluepoint Studios and Bend Studios. The 2 developers remain open and won't be shut, and Sony is now working with both teams to determine what their next projects are. According to Jason Schreier, reporter of Bloomberg, the project Bluepoint had been working on all this time was a live service God of War game. The game Bend Studio was creating was also a live service title, but Sony hasn't confirmed whether the 2 cancellations will lead to layoffs or developer exits, but they remain open. It's working closely with Bend and Bluepoint to determine the next projects. So essentially, Bluepoint, who wrapped up on Demon's Souls for the PS5 launch, which was 2019, so over 5 years ago now, they claim to be working on a new project. We actually spoke about in our PlayStation episode 2 weeks back that what are Bluepoint working on? It was described as original content.
And we were miles off.
It's not original content. I mean, to be fair, I think we theorised it might be an Uncharted because they didn't say new content, they said original content, which could be
it was an original game, not original IP.
Now it's a confirmed God of War live service game that... all in all, this is just one of them things where it's like, what a waste of time, money, and talent that after 5 years nearly, whatever the game was, they've decided to scrap it at this point, Richie. And Bluepoint being his... and Bend, of course, made Days Gone was their last game. We don't know what theirs was, what they were working on, but for them to both be just cancelled, it either shows you that Concord has had massive ripple effects through Sony, where they're like, right,
it has.
These live service games, like, what the fuck are we doing? Pull the plug. They're too expensive. We won't be able to maintain them. We don't want another Concord. Let's go back. I mean, it's great news that they're not closing the studios, because that would seem like a massive shame to close them where they've seemingly not done anything wrong other than what they've been told by the previous leadership in terms of Sony's direction. But I don't know what a live service God of War would look like, but it frustrates me so much to think that if they'd just been working on another Uncharted game or a Days Gone 2, we could be seeing them in the next 12 months. They should be ready after 5 years in development.
I wonder when they made this decision. Because this is possible that Sony internally made this decision, probably maybe potentially around the same time as the cancelled Last of Us factions, but didn't want to cancel too many games in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So held off. Held back the axe. It's because they didn't want the share price to plummet too much. But I don't know, it just feels misguided. The whole decision for Sony to double down so hard on games on the live service feels misguided. It felt misguided when they announced it. It's not that I'm saying that they shouldn't do live service games, but it feels like the more we hear, especially with like Bluepoint, it hadn't even really crossed my mind that they could be working on a live service game, like in any real...
They've got no prior experience in it.
Yeah, And it just like, well, and then the live service God of War, I don't even know what that game could be. And I'm guessing it's got to the point when they've looked at it and gone, why does this game exist? And I think it probably would have done better than Concord because it's hard not to. But I do think Concord's closure and just Concord, can't forget the reason Concord was canned was not because it was a bad game, it's because no one cared about it. Because objectively, I think it was like doing 7, 8 out of 10. So critics were going, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad game. But it's just no one cared. And that is, for a live service game, you can have a shit game that people care about and do really well. You have to get people to care about the game. So it's like, I'm guessing the closest because they don't think there's going to be enough people to sustain it, and they just decide to cut the losses. I don't know how else to take it. It's like,
but they should have knew that well before now. Like, did it really take Concord to make them go like, oh, guys, we might have got this massively wrong?
They've seen the success of things like PUBG and Fortnite and Call of Duty Warzone and Apex Legends and Overwatch, and went, we should do that, and put so many eggs in that particular basket and didn't stop to think about why people love Sony's first party stuff. Again, I'm not against live service games existing. I think I'm all for actually diversity in the gaming library.
Yeah.
And that's where games like Concord failed, because it offers no diversity. It's just the same as other stuff that people already are playing. So I looked at it and went, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's just utter frustration from my point, because then, like, in our PlayStation conversation, we're looking at the year ahead and thinking, like, these studios must be ready to go with, like, something new and exciting. And then we learn that actually they're now figuring out what the new projects look like, which means they haven't even started pre-production, which means we're another 4 to 5 years out from seeing what they actually have to make, which then in turn means that the slate of PlayStation games for the years to come is now lessened, which is frustrating as a PlayStation gamer predominantly. It means that all the talent has gone to waste to a point where we could be looking at in 2025, 26, we could have had a Demon's Souls 2 remaster from Bluepoint. We could have had a Days Gone 2, which sold millions and was beloved by gamers, although PlayStation heads thought otherwise. It just thinks we're now 2 exclusive games down in that cycle that we would have been. Arguably to a point where Days Gone are probably going to go into 2030 from 2012 having made 2 games.
And this is why
Uncharted
the PS5
and Days Gone.
The PS5, I think, may go down when we reflect on it, when we get our hands on the PS6, as a bit of a flop. Not in terms of sales or anything, but if you look at the PS5 library compared to the PS4 library, it's not even comparable. Yeah. Like, I still feel like I'm waiting for the generation to kickstart, and we're probably closer to the next generation than the start of this one.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're past the halfway point, certainly.
Yeah.
We could have had a
sequel. These are the decisions that have left that them holes in the library.
Sucks, isn't it?
Working on taking talent and making them work on the wrong stuff.
We could have had a sequel to the Order 1886 in this time, Richie.
Could have done.
Damn it. But then the other thing is, obviously Naughty Dog cancelled theirs, but Naughty Dog is a studio big enough to have 2 teams running at once, and they were always grafting away in their background on Last of Us Part 3 while they were doing factions, and now they've pivoted full focused. These teams aren't, so it's basically like back to the drawing board, and it's like after 5 years, it's just shit. It's just like, oh man.
Yeah, like I think there was a lot of hope, especially from Bluepoint, because you saw how well they've handled the Demon's Souls remaster, other stuff they've worked on, like they worked on Uncharted. Like, you saw how much care and attention they've put into these, and you're like, oh, these could be potentially what now they're moving away from that kind of remake studio into the realm of we're going to make our own games. It felt like they were like another Naughty Dog or Insomniac in the making, because you could see the talent there in the games that they'd remade. Yeah. But now it feels like they're back at square one. So what they're going to be working on. And it's going to be about 5 years minimum, probably, before we see it.
Yeah. It's a good thing everyone's just going to be playing GTA 6 for the next decade anyway. It gives these studios time to toil over in the background. But yeah, it's just a thing. It's just a sign of the times, isn't it? We saw it with other game like Redfall, in a way, could have been a focused vampire game, and instead it ended up being this 4-player live service. Avengers, we've said before, the campaign for Avengers was really, really good. Multiplayer fell apart at the seams. Suicide Squad, I don't know if you've seen the article go around about how dire Suicide Squad is for its final run, for its final season this week, but it's just basically just fumble after fumble, and yeah, I guess we'll see them all in 2030 for PlayStation's 35th anniversary, celebrating what. And you know what? Sony, make it right. Get Bend on a Days Gone 2 and get Bluepoint to work on a damn other Uncharted game. There you go. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, they will sell more than these live service games will have done. I could have told you that 5 years ago.
Right. Sorry, just go back 2 weeks ago and listen to our PlayStation kickoff podcast for the year ago and listen to some of the ideas that we were just throwing out off the tops of our heads. Like, oh, that could be awesome. Because we're fans of yours and we want you to make these games. So just make them, because you can do it. You have the talent there. And my worry when you do stuff like this is you've got people who've been working their ass off for a long period of time in these games, so now got told that, oh yeah, the last 5 years of your life has amounted to nothing from a professional standpoint.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's going to fucking suck.
You know what? I wouldn't be that bothered if we actually saw glimpses of it, just to be like, oh man, look what we could have had. But this stuff will just stay so secretly hidden. Like, I hope in a way, I hope we do get leaks. You know, like we saw some of the Wolverine gameplay. Wouldn't it be great if we just got a peek at what these look like?
I hope there's elements of these games and like factions that have found their way into other games, story ideas, maybe some of the assets that they've generated for them work their way into maybe the next God of War game.
Yeah,
like this hopefully there's stuff that can be salvaged, because it's got to absolutely suck to put so much time and effort into a project to then get told, no, you're not doing that anymore. We're not going to do it. It's never going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's kind of the sort of thing where I think some of the talent might go, you know what? I'm going somewhere else.
I'll go work for Nintendo.
Like, or Microsoft, like...
Yeah, maybe not.
You don't know.
Jokes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it does make me worry for the likes of Fair Games more, Marathon more.
I'm not worried about them because I don't care about them.
No, but in terms of the repercussions of the studio and more money lost and more initiatives shut down after years and years of toil. But yeah,
I'm guessing as well these two games were after so long still a way out from development, because otherwise you might at least attempted a launch.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just goes back and makes you wonder. We did have a piece in the show notes to talk about, which was PlayStation former exec Shuhei Yoshida did an interview with Kind of Funny this week, which gives a couple of like talking points, tidbits that I was going to touch on, but we can just lightly cover them here, Richie, because we're long on the tooth for the show. PlayStation Vita apparently wasn't far off a switching concept. He said things like memory cards, the rear touchpad with some mistakes that maybe bumped the cost of the Vita up too much, and things internally like resources were spread too thin, so they were focusing on like the outwards of the PS3, launching of the PS4 and the Vita, and so they just didn't have enough internal resources to support the thing as it deserved. And again, Vita ahead of its time with the remote play and stuff like that, and just
during the Vita, you've got now having your first party studios make games for two different platforms. Yeah. So you're doubling up the work. So
it's almost like
it could be as simple as that.
It's like the live service issue we just discussed, just different. Instead of live service, they had portable.
Oddly enough, Nintendo solved that problem with the Switch. Like, now you only have to make one for games for one platform. It will do both home console and portable. There you go.
Combine your assets. And another segment from the interview, he also said that apparently buying the remastered games helps fund your new games being made. So he said a lot of people think that the remasters are like cash grabs and stuff, which in essence they are, because they're made usually by smaller internal teams. I think we've said before, actually, remasters are a good way of new developers cutting their teeth on the tech. and they get you familiar with it to then go on to full production of a brand new game. He said, but yeah, if you keep giving them the additional resources, this is instead of live service. So if you buy a remaster, it helps fund the studio to make the sequel of the next game, as opposed to a live service game, which has been their initiative to keep money flowing in the door. Because let's face it, you sell 10 million copies of Spider-Man, but then sales plummet and trickle off. That studio then has to graft away for 5 years, paying wages, insurance, property costs, all those other costs that come with a business, server costs, for example, but you're getting no more cash in the door. So it's very much a big win than out with single-player games.
And the thing with me when it comes to remasters and remakes is I'm kind of genuinely pro them, as with the caveat, as long as they don't replace the original, that you can still play the original, but he's a better, meant to be objectively better version. Absolutely. The instant misses Grand Theft Auto. That you can play. And if you, because for simply, sometimes it brings old beloved games to new platform, to more modern hardware, so people who haven't played them can then play them.
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. And guess what? If you don't like the remaster and you prefer the original, this is why I leave the caveat of as long as they don't replace the original, you can play that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong.
Or you could just choose not to.
Yeah, you don't have to buy it.
It's not, as long as they're not taking away something from like that already exists.
Yeah,
I don't have any issue with them existing.
Yeah,
and even the Last of Us situation where it's like sometimes you go, it's a bit soon, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
yeah, if you think the Last of Us Remastered takes away from the team that's working on like Part 3 or Intergalactic, that's not how these studios work, folks. Yeah. He also goes on in the interview. It's a great interview. You should go watch it. It's about 2 hours of just really candid talk with a 31 years experience of PlayStation. It goes really in depth about some interesting topics and things behind the scenes. Obviously, he's not going to go and blurt out all Sony secrets. They seemingly do that themselves this week by cancelling 2 major projects. He does go on to say the reason we've theorized is why we haven't seen a Bloodborne 2 is because Miyazaki doesn't want anyone else to touch his IP of Bloodborne, and apparently everyone at PlayStation respects him that much that they're going to respect his wishes and not make a sequel without his, I guess, leadership and him at the helm, which, you know what the day to do it now. Yeah,
to be honest, that suggests that Sony could do it, but choosing not to.
I think they own the IP in partnership with them. They're just that respectful of them. They're like, you know what, you go do your Elden Rings and stuff, and when you're ready, we'll keep the seat warm for you, basically. I think we'll see it. Even get a remaster out soon. And then the final kind of tidbit I want to pull out is that, going back to our previous story, paraphrasing here, he said he wouldn't have made the push into live service if he was in charge. So it goes back to Jim Ryan, and then I guess now Herman Hulst, really big push to Concord apparently quite a lot, and Fair Games. We'll never really know who's to blame because that's not how corporations work. They don't point the finger at one individual.
It's never one person really. Yeah. You have one person who is ultimately making the final decision, but that person is surrounded by a lot of other people. Yeah, probably saying you should make this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, great interview. Go watch it. It just kind of goes off the back of what we were talking there. Positive news though, Richie. As we wrap up on this PlayStation section, we've got PlayStation's game catalogue for the month of January, and ironically enough, it includes God of War Ragnarok, which is a brilliant get for the service if you've got it and never played it. The PS4, PS5 version of God of War Ragnarok is now available. Not now available, sorry. It'll be dropping onto the catalogue January 21st. You've got a few more days. Actually, when the podcast goes live, it's tomorrow. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name from the Yakuza series, is there, faked his own death, abandoned his name for the sake of protecting his family. Atlas Fallen, Reign of Sand, no idea what that is. It's an action RPG featuring sand. SD Gundam Battle Alliance, also no idea what that is. Something to do with SD cards fighting Gundams. Go check that one out if you want to. Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is a fantastic dreamy arcade game, riding motorcycles, almost like a rhythm game in a weird way. I know that was very well received back in the day. Anno Mutationem is a neon-covered 2D meets 3D cyberpunk world. Don't know what that means. Go check that out. Sorry for these breakdowns, but I'm trying to get through this quite quick. The wonderful Orcs Must Die 3, which there's a Let's Play series up with me and Richie checking out both on Google Stadia and on Xbox. So you've got 2 variations of the game to go and check out on PS4, PS5. Citizen Sleeper for PS4, PS5, which is a great little indie game. You're a sleeper to digitize human consciousness in an artificial body. Go check that one out. It's an interesting little puzzle game to solve out. Poker Club. to PS4, it's Poker Club. And then your PlayStation Plus Premium Classic games that you are getting, Medieval 2 for PS4, PS5, hopefully with trophies. This is the 2000 PlayStation original title, the sequel, where you play as Sir Daniel Fortescue. You're basically a dead soldier. 3D platform in the vein of Crash and Spyro. And then, weirdly enough, Richie, of all my lamenting and adventures towards Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, one of my biggest games, Indiana Jones, we know it's coming to PlayStation this spring. This came out of nowhere. I did not expect this at all. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings will be coming to the service on January 21st. Originally released in 2009. Remember, the same year Uncharted 2 came out on PlayStation 2. It didn't get a PlayStation 3 version because it was that bad behind the scenes in development. Apparently, this takes you on a perilous journey around the world, quests for the Staff of Moses, which is a cool premise for an Indiana Jones game. This classic third-person action-adventure has been enhanced with up-rendering, rewind, quick save, and custom video filters. Grab your whip and get ready for a thrilling journey in true Indiana Jones tradition as you swing your way through the worst Indiana Jones game of the series for a long, long time. And
you know what's fun? I've just searched on Google, just under the videos tab, for Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
We're up first.
Oh, are we really?
There's cookies and stuff involved here, but
cookies.
The first search result under videos on Google for me is Indiana Jones. When I search for Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, it's Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings Retro First Look PS2 GamerGuildTV.
What timely video that might end up being. I might have to go in and change tags for that if it's coming to other consoles. First look.
This is where you check tomorrow. This is where it's 10,000 views.
Blew up.
It's actually on 2.4 thousand views.
Oh, it might be in that. I did put like Great Circle tags in it, but
yeah.
You know what the worst part is? The worst part. You know, I'm stuck between games what I want to play.
Yeah.
If this comes with trophies, I enjoyed the Great Circle that much. I could be tempted if it's got some modern sensibilities like upscaling, and they use the Wii version because it's the most modern version available aside from the PlayStation and the Xbox One.
It's the PS2 version.
Yeah, that's what they do say. But with the rewind functionality, so I can if I like one of the things that annoyed me if I kept falling off things, if I could just rewind, that's like another 3 minutes of frustration gone because I could just rewind it and try again.
Yeah.
And I do like Indiana Jones, and I do like a decent platinum, and because it's a PS2 game, the length of the game's probably going to be sub 10 hours. So you might find an Indiana Jones Platinum before the Great Circle comes out on my PlayStation in the days to come. But in the meantime, go check out our first retro look of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, available right now on the channel, and doing surprisingly well. I didn't realise it was up to 2.5K, so I will take that. But yeah, Indiana Jones on PlayStation. Not the game we were expecting, though.
Nope.
Quickly to round up the show as well, I did want to touch on a little bit. Dynasty Warriors Origins has came out. It's our first AAA game of the year, and it's doing quite well on Metacritic. Richie, I don't know if you want to read out a few of the reviews.
Oh, okay. Let's have a look.
Just while I find
what
a trailer.
Reviews shall we review?
Which reviews shall we review?
Yeah, reviews. I'm looking for IGN. Give it a 90. Dynasty Warriors Origins doesn't just have the largest amount of enemies in the series that's thrown on the screen at once. It also deepens the combat, improves its storytelling, and provides a healthy amount of replayability. Very good rating from IGN there.
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember who reviewed it. It might have been. Was it Stella? Someone at IGN's like a big action game.
I can check.
It says at the top, doesn't it? It's one of the ladies over there.
Yeah.
It's Jada Griffin, I think. Might have been
Jada Griffin.
Yeah,
Jada Griffin.
Yeah, she's big into action fighting games, so it's an honest review. But yeah, as a big fan of the Dynasty Warriors series, to see this almost like be not a restart point, because it is telling the Romance of the Three Kingdoms story for the 100th millionth time. It looks great. It plays great. It's only £50, so it's not even like a fully priced £70 title. And it's the best looking version I've seen of it. And the combat finally lives up to, I think, the biggest part of Jada's review, I think, did mention that in your mind, when I think back to playing it on PS2 and PS3 across the years, the 1,000 enemies on screen and you're kicking the shit out of them. That's what I thought in my mind it actually looks like. Whereas really the enemies used to pop in, they use fog of war a lot to hide people. groups of enemies would spawn on the map in like clusters of like 20. And it wasn't quite that. Whereas the scope of this, thanks to like modern gaming, it looks like it's finally seeing the realization of the massive combat that Dynasty Warriors is traditionally known for. But yeah, looks great. Dynasty Warriors Origins. It's probably one that I'll wait for because it is January and Payday is still somehow 2 fucking weeks away. Oh my word! How? Who knows? But yeah, it's good to see it's reviewed well, and it's a little bit of a nice refresh for the series.
Yeah, GameSpot give it a 7. I'm just going to read the bullet points. They're good. Takes a hack and slash essence of the series and puts it onto a much grander scale than ever before. Cleaving through hordes of enemies captures the Zen-like quality that's built on the spectacle and tight controls. Seamless transition to a more considered style of combat designed around parries and counters. Everyone hates parries. Emphasizes strategy by challenging you to consider the state of the battlefield. The story often disrupts the game's flow of superfluous dialogue. Cutting down the roster from 94 playable warriors to 1 is a drastic change. Missions that break from the norm reveal how most lack variety. The absence of co-op is disappointing. I wonder if the cutting down from 94 playable warriors to 1 is kind of linked with the improved controls and combat system.
Potentially, but yeah, you play as like an unknown, but part of the fun was playing as all the characters. Zhang Fei, Guan Yu, Xiao Zun, all them kind of people, yeah. But anyway, I'll check it out at some point. I'm sure my brother will pick it up, so I might play it around his. Or borrow it for a change. Last few quick stories we'll get into. Sega filed a trademark for ECCO The Dolphin, Richie. You big ECCO The Dolphin fan? You ever played ECCO The Dolphin?
I have played it.
Me too.
I never owned it because I never actually owned a Sega Mega Drive. My cousin did.
I had my cousins as well, yeah.
But I have a soft spot for ECCO.
I mean, how many games do you get to play as a dolphin, realistically?
Exactly.
Like it's a very niche genre. But back in the day of, like, I guess 2D scrolling from left to right, the fact that you were a dolphin with like a dash and a sonar mechanic or echolocation or whatever it is, I used to enjoy it. You used to use like his little click, click, squeak to scare off like different types of fish, I think, and puzzles. I can't really remember much of it other than like I do remember being quite like enthralled by it as a kid because it had like just bright colors and you play as a dolphin.
Do you think this is a return of ECCO, or do you think this is just them protecting the trademarks and just refiling?
I mean, Sega, they've already announced, remember, that they're going back and they're redoing Crazy Taxi and a bunch of other things. So yeah, why not? Fuck it. Like Sonic 3 is doing successfully well. Expect an ECCO 12-part mini TV series from HBO some point in 2026.
A dark, gritty HBO fantasy starring ECCO the Dolphin.
Yeah. Versus vampires. Who knows? And then final news story of the week. I do want to just quickly get it in here before we wrap it up, Richie. Because it's pertinent to some news. There was some stuff this week about Ubisoft and the Guillemot family and Tencent kind of looking like they're going to consolidate assets and do something. But the biggest one for me is we've seen via LinkedIn basically confirmation that Black Flag remake is real and it's possibly going to get an announcement soon. I think just the reason I wanted to get this in just so we cover it on the show, with Shadows being delayed again, I think what will be an absolute slam dunk for Ubisoft and to guarantee the sales of Shadows do well is they bundle Black Flag Remaster in with the premium edition of Shadows. And I think that's going to bump Shadows numbers, because I think Shadows will do quite well anyway, because it's the biggest Assassin's Creed. It should be the successful follow-on from Valhalla. But is the Ubisoft stink all over it now, or it's going to drag it down? I think an absolute shoe-in win is bundle Black Flag with it. So people go, hell yeah, like Black Flag was the last truly great Assassin's Creed game for a lot of people. What do you think? It's obviously it's definitely coming. I think we can see that now. We've had the Ezio trilogy, we've had 3 remastered. Black Flag's next in the line. It's
not a bad idea, to be honest. I hope the Black Flag remaster is better than the Assassin's Creed 3 one.
Yes.
It seemingly introduced more bugs and problems, and it didn't really fix any of the big major gripes that people had with the first one, like the weird like town stuff where occasionally there was trophies linked to people just wandering around and you had to scan them, and it was just like, why am I doing this? And then it was also just based on sheer luck. that you will get them in the right time. So these issues, I think, with Black Flag as well, that need to be smoothed out.
Mm-hmm.
That I think they should do. So I don't think they should do just a straight remaster. I think they should tweak a few things to make it feel like there's a bit of effort went in there rather than just putting it on the new platform.
Yeah, I agree. I also think they're probably able to take some assets from Skull and Bones that was built from the ground up and migrate them over to, like you were saying, like almost like remake, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, for me, if you're remastering a game, it should be you should put a bit more effort than just get it running on the new hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Get running on the new hardware, then look at the major criticisms of the game and see what you can actually address and try and address a handful of them.
Yeah.
Just so that experience is a bit better.
Yeah.
Don't change what people loved about the game, but where people have gripes and fair ones, just do it there. But bundling that in with Shadow's premium edition, because we know Ubisoft like to add a million different versions of the game.
Yeah.
It's a smart move, actually. Yeah. I'm not against it.
And we have seen it before. Like Far Cry games have came with, I think Far Cry 5 or 6 came with 3 Classic built into it. We've seen Blood Dragon Remastered come out since. And I'm trying to think, they've done it with one other thing, because I've specifically bought the premium edition for it. But it might have been Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered came with... It can't have been Valhalla, so it might have been Mirage. I'm not too sure, but they've done it multiple times before. And I think for Ubisoft, aside from the Break Glass for Emergency Ezio remake remaster, that's inevitably going to come in the next 5 to 6 years. I think Black Flag's a big win. Edward Kenway's story. It's the only Assassin's Creed mainline entry game that I don't have the platinum for.
And you can't get it right now because of multiplayer.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think I went back and the warships or something were like, damn, it's too big of a game for me to just hop back into as well.
Yeah.
So, Black Flag originally came out on the PS3. Wii U it was out for as well. That's how long ago it was. So it's been enough time, realistically.
I'm not against it at all. I think do it. 100% do it.
Do it, Ubisoft. Give yourself a win for once. But that's all we have time for on this week's show. Do let us know in the comments below what you think of the new Nintendo Switch, what you think of PlayStation closing down 2 games that were deep in development, and what you would like to see from the studios going forward. And let us know if you would like Black Flag bundled in with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Would that sell you the game? But we like to wrap up every show with looking back at this date in video game history, and myself and Richie are recording on the day before we go get very drunk on Friday, January the 17th. As I said, still 2 damn weeks till payday. Anything stand out for you on the 17th of January in the yesterday, Richie?
Temple Run 2 came out on Android 12 years ago.
12 years, damn.
Yeah. Divinity Original Sin. This came out 11 years ago on PC, which ultimately led to the Baldur's Gate 3.
Nice. Very nice.
And that's about it, really.
Yeah, it's quite a quiet season, isn't it?
I think January it's the post-Christmas hangover. You've literally just been saying, oh, God, it's 2 weeks till 2 weeks till payday.
Well, yeah, on another month, I might have bought Dynasty Warriors if I wasn't absolutely skint.
Yeah, it's not an ideal month for people financially, I always think, January, so you don't really want to bring your game out there. Yeah. But, I mean, Little Big Planet 2 did on PS3 on the 18th of January.
That was the choice. Missed the Christmas
14 years ago.
Yeah. January 19th, just to skip ahead, Palworld, a year ago. It's already been a year since Palworld. And that remember that kickstart of the year when it just went insane? And everyone's like, this like Pokemon game with guns, and it's like a survival game. And like a year ago this week, we'll have played it, Richie, as a first look, as a drop on Game Pass, if you remember. It's already been a year. It's already been a year since we played Palworld, which is
I know, it's mad.
But in the meantime, of course, go check out the Indiana Jones trailer. Myself and Richie will be back for The Last of Us this week. It was cancelled this week due to work arranged. As I said, I was working away. So we'll be back this week for that one, hopefully. And of course, join us next week for the show. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you all, audience out there who like, subscribe, comment, and all of our guild heroes. Of course, we couldn't do this without you. But that's been it for this week's show. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
And remember, folks, play wherever makes you the happiest. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.